Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 10th edition of LFP Live, a playoff game day
The
edition.
first ever playoff game
Come
day
on,
edition of LFP Live.
come on. First of many, because if you've looked ahead at the schedule, game 4 is also a game day edition, a playoff game day edition that is. But wow, so many people in chat already. Matt Hyman at 8:43 a.m. If you saw on Twitter, he posted yesterday at like 5 o'clock saying, "I'll see you at 8:43 a.m." There he is, 8:43. Sammy Smokes, good morning. James Robinson, good morning. Everyone's here. Everyone's fired up. People are nervous. Um, Brian, how you doing? Playoff game
Oh,
day.
I am so excited. Like there is something so incredibly infectious about this city during whiteout season. Because it's hilarious because you can go forever without just like driving around and seeing like multiple people in a row, wearing Jet stuff. Uh you got the flags, you got people wearing their jerseys daily now. Every business seems to have like a Go Jets in their window. It's just the vibe that is floating around out there right now is just fantastic, and I have 100% caught all of that.
Yeah, and it's just game one. Like I'm so happy that this series started today, because the previous rumor was Monday at 8:45, and I don't know, the
Well,
series starting in a late slate game on a Monday night. I just feel like would take some of that excitement out of it. But you get a full weekend day for people to get downtown, get partying. Yeah, it's gonna be a ton of fun. Matt Hyman saying, "I can barely contain my excitement for today. I'm not sure if it's because it's the Jets' first playoff game or LFP featuring Murat." Yes, you heard him correctly. Marat Atesh of The Athletic is going to be joining us at 10 a.m. So it's going to be a bit of a longer episode today, but it's the playoffs. It's a grind. Everyone's dealing with something. Got to power through. But yes, Marat Atesh, we're super excited to have him on. First guest in LFP Live history. He's going to be coming on at 10. So stick around for that. We're also going to do the questions before Marat. That way, we're not going till 11 or 11:30, even though we probably could. Brian, let's get into this game today. 6 p.m. start, game one of the series between the Jets and Avalanche. Just where's your excitement level at? Just for you talked about like the vibe around the city. How about just like the game itself, the on ice product?
I think for me, I am just so hyped up to see, like I mean, I'm always so excited with just that wall of white in the
Yeah,
seats, and it's just a matter of seeing how that affects the current rendition of the team, because not everyone was here last year, or the 2017-18 run.
right.
So you often will actually be able to catch some of the players both on the Jets and whoever they're playing kind of looking up and around being like, look at this. This is
Yeah,
amazing. And then in terms of the actual like game itself, I truly think that this is one of those series that if you get a hot start, I feel really good about the rest of the series.
I agree too. We'll talk about the importance of game one because that's something that I do
Mhm.
want to like really dive into because hey, game one of any series is important, but I think it's even more important um, in this series in particular, and I'll explain why later on. But Doug, bringing up a great point here.
Oh,
Hoostley's singing the anthem. When I
ain't
saw
nothing
this,
better.
nothing better. And Marat,
Should have
when
started
Marat comes
LFP
on,
live with Hoosley.
I don't even know how we would have done that. But anyways, when Murat comes on, I hope that I won't be putting him on the spot, but he always posts the Jets like first period stats when Hoosley sings the anthem, and they outscore their opponents like 28-6 or something nuts in the
They get
first
it
period after.
rolling.
Yes, they get the boys rolling. And I'm so excited to hear that anthem with the whiteout. The True North is gonna like pierce everyone's ears in that building. It's gonna be so much fun. Um, yeah, so many people fired up. Thank you everyone who's here with us live 9 a.m. 9:08. We're already creeping up at 100 people. That's the StreamYard number. I don't know what YouTube's saying right now, but
Yes, before we get accused of,
yes,
manipulating the math. We see everything across all platforms we go live on.
yeah. I also want to highlight this comment real quick. Flying in today from
Incredible.
Arizona for my first Jets home game / whiteout. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the street party beforehand. Enjoy the game. That's going to be so much fun. Brian, have you been to a playoff game before?
I have. So I went to the first one in 2015. Uh,
Mm.
I went to game 1 against Minnesota,
Mm.
and then I think I went to game whatever it was. It was a loss here against Nashville. I think it was game 5, maybe game 6.
Game 6, they got shut out 4-0, I think.
And yeah, I think game 6 of the second round of that series was the last time I went. So um, I would love to, really get back into actually getting to games, but like even without
Dude,
doing
it's
it, just like
expensive.
the experience, just seeing it all too. Like it's just everyone kind of coming together, and yeah, there's the flyby out in the whiteout parties. Like I'm hoping to get out to the whiteout party on Tuesday,
Mhm.
depending on sort of how things are going. But no, it's wow, it is so many people to me. Sort of, it stands out how many people like just drop everything and just excited about the whiteout. Like as I
Yeah,
said
it is.
earlier, it's like infectious.
Truly, it truly is around the city, and like you walk by the arena, you walk by the whiteout party, you feel the energy from the people, and it's real. Um, it's it's going to be so much fun. I remember going to so my track record for being at playoff games is actually not very good in terms of wins losses. Um, I went to Game 5 against Minnesota where the Jets scored 4 goals in the first period and the game was basically over. I think they played like Sweet Caroline in that building like 8 times the rest of the game because the game was over, the series was over, like it was just a party.
Yeah, I was in the
Um,
whiteout party for that.
yeah, it was just a party.
Yeah, that was back before they like capped the attendance, and so
Yeah, right.
there was like
Just
15,000 people right outside, just kind of swarming around and
yeah,
chaos.
yeah, yeah. Um, I went to Nashville game 4 where they lost 2-1. I went to St. Louis game 5 where Adam Lowry scored 12 seconds in and
Oh,
the building just like exploded. That was one of my favorite moments of going as a fan to games. Um, was that game 5 against St. Louis, which St. Louis scored with like 30 seconds left. Like it was heartbreaking. And they lost. But
oh,
that those first 12 seconds where Adam Lowry scored. It was the Copp Lowry Tanev line. It was awesome. And then last year I went to Vegas game 4 where Blake Wheeler, it was his last home game as a Jet, last goal as a Jet. And yeah, that was a good game too, but that was also like a Tuesday 9 p.m. or like a Monday 9 p.m. Like it was one of
it
those
it
late
does
starts. Yeah.
legitimately dampen the vibes.
A little bit, which like sucks, but hey, we don't have to worry about that today, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So many people. Yeah, the flyby I'm super excited for. So many people saying playoff game number 2. Went to last year's Vegas series. I went to double OT. Holy moly. That was a marathon. Scott Oak, yes, he's the host for Sportsnet in this series, back with his people at the
Love it.
street party. I hope he does the live hit from the
Yeah,
street
where he's
party.
on the pedestal and the
Yes.
so good.
Yes. Exactly. I get way too stressed out when the Jets are in the playoffs. I think every time the Jets play in the playoffs, I lose a few days off my life due to stress. LOL. I could barely sleep last night, and I blame LFP. Come on, Oli, how's it going? Um, yeah, so many people here with us. Brian, let's get into the actual series. People are
Yeah.
fired up. Today's game 1. Let's start with the importance of winning game 1 and why. Or I'm going to talk about why I think it's even more important in this series, maybe than other ones. Why do you think game 1 is super important tonight?
Well, it just establishes that you can actually, start strong and show whoever you're playing that you're not just here to mess around. They're going to jump all over you. They are going to use the crowd. It is going to be massive if you can come away 1-0, because then you're guaranteed at the very least a split going back on the road. And
Mhm.
you snag a game on the road, game or two on the road. Um, then suddenly you get to come home with possibly the chance to close it out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Could
that
you imagine?
series.
Could you
Oh,
imagine Kyle Connor triple overtime winner? Like,
or like that
oh my God.
the 3 goal
Nikolai
or the 4 goal
Ehlers. Yeah, the
comeback and
comeback.
the Ehlers, absolute ripper right off the face
Those
off there. It's
those
just
would have been both of those games would have been up there with the Nashville game 3, and against a Canadian team in the play like that.
Truly.
I know they only played a Canadian team because of these circumstances,
But
but
still.
like, man, that is a real missed, like, legendary moment. It's still legendary in Jets history, but with the whiteout.
Yeah.
But continue on this game.
Yeah, and so we've seen it mentioned a bunch already too, where obviously he's been ruled out for the entirety of the series, but Jonathan Drouin being out is massive because it forces the Avs to stack all of their scoring on the top line. They move Rantanen up into that first line right wing spot, which means their second line is now Zach Parise, Casey Middlestad, and Val Nichushkin. And I really like whoever is matched up against that line
Yeah.
comparatively. And then the rest of it, like, it's just, you're not really looking at too much depth in comparison to what the Jets have. So I really think that Drouin being out and forcing the Avs before the game even starts to move all of their scoring talent early onto one line is just massive for what the Jets can do line match wise. Because we know that they're going to hard match the Lowry line against the McKinnon line. We get that. And I think that, limiting them is massive, but then taking advantage of the other lines is going to be just as big, if not bigger.
100%. And you wrote a piece, and we'll get to that in a second because it was really fun read. But my piece that I wrote for yesterday morning was just a really extensive series preview. I didn't like the Drouin news wasn't out yet. And even before that, I talked about how the X factor for the Jets, everyone's hyping it up like it's the Lowry line, and it is because they'll be against McKinnon a lot. But I think an underrated X factor in the series, and even more so with Drouin being out, is the Ehlers Monahan Toffoli line. They've outscored their opponents 11-4 at 5-on-5. And if you don't think that they're going to feast on the Avs bottom 9, like that line has to come to play. And tonight, I said it when they acquired Tyler Toffoli, and you could see it happen as early as tonight. I said he's going to score some massive goals for the Jets in the playoffs. That second line, man, I'm just saying, I think they're in for a big game because the Avs depth is shot. And even without Drouin, he's not a top line player, but he's a player who can fill in on the top line and play with a Nathan McKinnon and post good results. Like that's a notable loss. So I do think that makes
he's like a 50-point player this year. Like it's not, that's like McKinnon obviously elevates guys, but Drouin coming into his own and playing confident again, because we've seen what he can do when he plays confident. It matters a lot in terms of their ability to just be like offensively dynamic. Because Rantanen on the second line allowed, Middlestad to be a little more comfortable, Nichushkin to be a little more comfortable. But now you've got the fact that Zach Parise is now your next man up for your second line. Like I mentioned it, I think on last episode, that he announced that after this, playoff run, he's retiring. So like this is it for him. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they line match, because I suspected that obviously we know the top line for the Avs is going to see a lot of Lowry, but I'm curious to see if they try and, line match line 2 and line 2, and then let, the Connor Scheifele line, because I know that the Avs do roll that third line a lot because it's their quote unquote shutdown line, with Ross Colton and Miles Wood and someone else who I'm forgetting because it moved around after the, the Drouin news. But
yeah,
truly, like it's going to be massive. I think with what Rick Bowness has to, do is kind of figure out, you need to be very clear that if something's working for you, just keep firing it out there, because if you can take advantage of those, that lack of depth, I mean that's probably the biggest thing there, aside from obviously shutting or limiting. You can't shut down Nate McKinnon, but limit the McKinnon line.
Yeah, you can't use the term shut down Nathan McKinnon or Cale Makar, because that's the reason the Avs are weirdly like still favored in this series, even with the Drouin injury and the goaltending. And we'll get into the goaltending in a second.
Oh yeah.
But the Avs are favored. The Jets are underdogs, and there's a reason for that. And it's because Nathan McKinnon is going to win the NHL's MVP, and Cale Makar is probably the best defenseman in the league, or the defenseman I'd want the most in a playoff series.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll phrase it that way. But I want to get back to game one tonight. I feel like game one here is an opportunity for the Avs to kind of show that they can hang with the Jets, because the Jets, they beat them all 3 times in the regular season by a combined score of 17-4. They beat them 7-0, a week ago in a day. They put up a converted touchdown on them in Denver. And like, I think if the Jets come out and take a 2-0 lead in period 1 and win this game 5-1, you just like eliminate all, like, if the Avs were to win this game, I think that they could have some confidence then. Or if they send it to OT, then they could like, oh, we can hang with the Jets, like, despite the fact they just killed us a week ago. Which is why I think there's a heightened importance on this game one. Like, I don't think the Leafs losing to the Bruins last night means their series is over, but I think the Jets can really like put a nail in the coffin, but like really come out and set the tone and say, hey, those regular season wins weren't a fluke. This is just how we match up against you, and you can't handle it. And we just beat you 5-1 in game one of the play. Like, I feel like there's a heightened importance. Game one's obviously always important in every series, but I feel like when a team sweeps the season series, beats them 7-0 a week ago, and then you meet in the playoffs, like the chance to do it again can just demoralize a team. And the Jets can do that tonight. So I don't know.
I feel like with that game one thing, I feel like it's going to be super cliche of me, where if you win game one, the most important game of the series, regardless, after that is going to be game two. Because we've seen it already where, like last year, like, right, they come out, they have the best game one against Vegas,
right,
and then lose 4 straight.
Yep.
See, like the thing is, like, I'm hesitant to bring up 2018 because I'm still convinced that if the incredible goaltending from Marc-Andre Fleury is even slightly less, the Jets win the cup that year.
Yep.
Because the Jets played, especially for the first 4 games of that series, the Jets were head and shoulders above Vegas. It wasn't even close. And then game 5 was the only one that Vegas had any advantage, and it just felt like there was a little bit of like everyone was really down, and there was a lot of lineup changes, and it was the unofficial end to like Toby Enstrom stay in Winnipeg, and everyone was just upset. And so but the rest people, a lot of the time they just think of that series, they lost in 5. They were incredibly good for the rest of it. But I feel like I'm going way off on a tangent here.
Well,
but
no,
in terms of like the importance of game one, I feel like as important is just how you follow it up. Like the Jets can come out flying here tonight, win, 4-0 or something. The next step then for that, like the next step is just come out on Tuesday and just do exactly what you did right, and adjust and do all of that. And it's very surface level analysis, and I get that, but it's also like it's true. Like if you don't respond well, win or lose in game 2, that for me is what sets the tone for the series.
And that's what Mark Scheifele said in the scrum yesterday. He said, dealing with kind of the peaks and valleys of the playoffs, dealing with the fact that you're going to have a bad period, you're going to have a bad shift here and there, and how you respond. And hey, if the Avs come out and win tonight, then yeah, you still have home ice advantage. You still got to come out and win game 2, because everyone knows you can't go down 2-0 going back to Colorado. But I think we brought this up on the last edition, the last Level Flight episode, and that's Elliott brought it up, and that's the home record of the Colorado Avalanche versus their road record. Their home record's 39-1, best in the NHL, and then their road record's 19-16-6, which is middle of the pack, very mediocre losing record on the road. Like, you got to take advantage of that. You can't home ice advantage has to be an advantage. I know it's like you said, it's pretty surface level stuff here, but it's true. And the Jets could really get behind in this series if the Avs are able to steal a game on the road and then use that dominant home record that they have, last change with Nathan McKinnon, and go out and win the series, right? It's definitely something to watch for. And tonight, I think they have a real chance to really set the tone for the series and repeat what they did. They're not going to win 7-0 tonight. Maybe you could clip that and I'll look dumb. I happily look dumb.
Yeah.
But I think tonight they have a chance to really send a message that the regular season wasn't a fluke. Lots of people are bringing up their X factors, Brian. Ehlers, Monahan, Toffoli. I brought it up as an X factor. The Lowry line, obviously. Who's one player that you might think is like an underrated X factor for the Jets, not only in this series but Game 1 tonight?
I mean, there's easy answers,
For
obviously,
sure.
but I feel like an underrated X factor is going to be, and I'm trying to say this without being like harsh about it, but it's the level of impact that Neil Pionk has on the game.
Mhm.
Where if he can limit some of the, the chaos in like the chaos in terms of like puck turning over, I'm totally okay with the chaos of, laying a hit on Nathan McKinnon and then daring someone to punch him in the chin. Like,
Mhm.
totally okay with that. I truly think that if he can, like, if that second pairing, wait, before I continue, Elliott's in the chat. There we go.
Yeah, that's
Um,
it.
but I truly think that if that second pairing can limit the damage against it, because they have been the one that has been the most volatile as of late, that matters so much to me. And it
Mhm.
is like you can talk about too, like you said, underrated. And I truly think that it can't be overstated the importance of like a incredible run here by Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah,
Like I know last year there was some questions because he wasn't at his best in that Vegas series. We've seen him a lot better, so I feel like the X factor I think is him putting those questions to bed again, despite winning
for
the
sure.
Jennings, despite winning another Vezina this
Push.
year. There's still that thing that hovers over him about, oh, you didn't have a good playoff series last year. Um, I think that to me is how he comes out as well. I think it matters a lot, but I'm curious who
Yeah.
you have in mind for sort of your X factor.
So I agree with you like wholeheartedly on the Connor Hellebuck thing. There's this whole notion that he doesn't perform in the playoffs. He needs to overcome that. Now's the perfect time. No better time than the present after winning the Vezina and the Jennings. Adam Lowry, obviously, going to be matched up with Nathan McKinnon. Josh Morrissey, obviously, going to be matched up with Nathan McKinnon. But I'm going to use this comment from Oli, who said he nerded out on an Avs podcast, talking not solely about Georgiev struggling, but how that might be negatively affecting how the Avs play in front of him. Velarde and others need to
Interesting.
be goal front pests. Gabriel Velarde is my like underrated X factor to this series for a multitude of reasons, and this is one of them. Georgiev has struggled this year. Having someone in front of the net to punch away these goals, where playoff goals are scored, greasy goals, is going to be huge. And a lot of, and I wrote this yesterday, a lot of the discussion around this series has been, well, the Avs have the special teams advantage. And they do. They do have a pretty wide special teams advantage. Their power plays top 5. Jets penalty kill is bottom 12, I believe. And then the other way is also flipped. Like the Jets power plays bottom 12 and the Avs, I don't know about the Avs PK actually, but when Velarde and Monahan are in the lineup, the Jets power play is like near 30%. Like it's good. And I think lowering the advantage that that the Avs have in the special teams department is kind of another key to this series. And Gabriel Velarde changes the dynamic of the power play. He makes that unit go. He's my underrated X factor. I talked about Toffoli scoring big goals. You brought up Hellebuck. We know Lowry. We know Morrissey. But I think an underrated one is Gabriel Velarde, who the Jets can go 2 for 3 on the power play tonight simply because of Gabe Velarde making unreal plays at the side of the net. And if you go 2 for 3 on the power play in a playoff game, more likely than not, you're going to win. So I think Velarde is huge. Let us know in the chat below who's your X factor for the series. People have already done that. But yeah, Stanley could play a big role. DeMello is incredibly underrated. Captain Lowry is the X factor from
You got a
CMAC.
couple of Vlad Nemesnikovs in there.
Vlad
And I
Nemestikov,
actually I think
Kyle
that one has
Connor.
a lot of like substance to it because one, if for whatever reason, and God forbid there's like an injury, we know that he has been the guy to step up and he's
Totally.
done so great.
Yeah.
Um, I also think too that on that fourth line, obviously, because that's another thing we haven't mentioned it yet. Morgan Barron confirmed out for today.
There you go. Yeah.
Um, And so what is that? It's Gus,
Nemestikov,
Vlad,
I
and then I
follow.
follow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So still a great line, but when Barron's in the lineup too, all three, like, obviously they've been around, but all three members of that line have 11 goals. Like,
Yeah.
getting, like, I know they've been kind of up and down, but Barron is the one that's most impressive to me because he's really um the only one who hasn't moved above a bottom six role, and he still has 11.
Hmm.
So I think when he comes back, that's going to be another sort of X factor situation, is sort of how he,
Totally.
and granted, last time he was in a playoff series, his entire face got sliced open, but he was kind of the talk of the town for a bit there. But
Right.
truly, that fourth line, though, and specifically Vlad Nemestikov, because he also gets some time on that second unit, I think that he could be one of those players that scores those big goals that could, get into the dirty areas. You
Hmm.
need a goal late, and he comes out there, on like the second power play unit and buries one. Like, he feels like the type of player that could, be that guy
Totally.
against a
Totally.
former
And
team.
again, a revenge game. And how many times are like the Jets haven't gone deep in a few years? So how many times are you watching the conference finals, the Stanley Cup finals, and a third or fourth liner scores a massive goal? I mean,
Always.
if you want to relate it to the Jets last year, Adam Lowry scored the massive goal that got them back in it against Vegas, tied it late. They go on to lose. Who scored the goal for Vegas in overtime? Michael Amadio. That's not a top six. Bottom six players are going to play a huge role in the series. It's where the Jets
They
have an
matter.
advantage, depth. Alan Hayes here saying, "I'll take 4 lines in a Vezina goalie all day long."
It's a hell
That's
of a
what
combo.
it really is. Elliott saying my X factor is Vladdy in the fourth line. That fourth line really can like dominate along the wall, dominate the cycle. And I've said it many times already, but against the Avalanche depth, they can feast. And I saw someone earlier in chat. Sorry, I missed it, but someone said something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, here we go. Rat River Rebel. IFL is going to be a monster in the postseason." I could see an IFL scoring a goal. He's a great forechecker. That's what he's paid to do on that fourth line. And I could totally see that fourth line, pinning the Avalanche deep, cycling it around and scoring a greasy playoff type goal. For sure. Chris, Jets fan, playoffs feel different this year. Last year was nervous excitement. This year, excited and confident. I
I'd
100% agree.
agree.
You go into the playoffs on an 8-game winning streak. I think that does a lot. But
Well,
yeah,
like, that's the thing. Like, and there's clearly, I mean, every team has those holes that you can point to. And despite
yeah,
anything that you can kind of point to be like, oh, the Jets need to work on that, they still just seem to have that, like, it factor, right? Like, it's
totally.
you think about all the ways that they've found a way to win. It's always someone big coming up, whether it's, in net, both goalies, someone, like Josh Morrissey taking over a game, having a second line that can be better than your first, having, your
Yeah,
first line sort of start coming around at the end here. And then I think it's weird because I know, obviously, in the final game of the regular season, Jets sat, I think, what, 6 guys? Um,
yeah. Well, including Barron, who was hurt. I think it was like 6 or
yeah.
7. Yeah, yeah,
And obviously Vancouver didn't play their A lineup either. But I'm sorry, the vibe of going out there with, your biggest guys sitting out, you bring in a couple of guys from the Moose, and
they
your
score the
scratches,
game winner.
and
Like,
Nikita Chibrikov scores the game
come
winner,
on. Yeah,
which was just fantastic. Brad Lambert looked incredible.
he did. He's
I
so
just
fast. It's
I don't know.
unbelievable.
Dare I picture, the speed on a line with Nikolai Ehlers at some point, maybe. But um,
Yeah,
I think it like, wait, let me pull this up here.
yeah.
Um,
Go for it.
the the culture. Like,
Yeah,
if you guys got a chance to watch the jacket presentations all season, it's like you can see how much everyone is just enjoying themselves. It was really funny, with the two young guys. They both got the jackets, and they were both
yeah.
just like, "Thank you."
Thank you. Yeah, good luck in the playoffs. Yeah,
Chibrikov, tried to put it on over his jersey,
yeah, yeah.
and like, even like the game or two before, where it was like they win the game, everyone's celebrating, and then you hear in the background, as I think it was Brissois gives it to Hellebuck, Dylan
It's DeMello.
DeMello
Yeah,
goes, "Oh, these friggin' guys, what the hell?" And I'm like,
That stretch was so funny because the
just
jackets kept going
handing it
back and
back and
forth.
forth.
Yeah, from Hellebuck to Bressois to Hellebuck to Bressois. And DeMello, every single jacket presentation was just like yelling, like, "Oh, come on, what is this?" Yeah,
It's what I
the
heard though
goalie
about
union.
him,
Exactly.
about DeMello in Ottawa. Because I mean, I grew up an Ottawa Senators fan, keep
Mm,
tabs on them. Obviously, it's been a disaster, and I haven't been watching as much recently. But when DeMello was in Ottawa, he was kind of like the king of content. Um,
yeah.
he was always the face of things. They'd show him just screwing around with his teammates. Everyone
Mhm.
loved him. And I'm so happy that we have multiple of those guys where it's just like, that they are really bonding the team together. Like there's guys like him, even though he's not in the lineup every day. Nate Schmidt seems to just be an
Yeah.
absolute lightning rod in that, that locker room. And then the leadership of Adam Lowry has seemingly done a lot for the players, and like truly, like they look genuinely engaged at all times. Like there's maybe been one or two games this year where I've been able to question, effort and response and everything. Last year it felt like every other game there was
Right.
always something.
Yeah.
They respond really well, and that level of leadership, and a lot of the guys too, like whether it's here or elsewhere, they have some level of playoff experience.
Yeah.
And I think they know it matters when you know when to lock in, but you also know that you can't take things, too seriously, because then you start getting too hard on yourself. You start, missing things that, you normally make. And I feel like
Right.
you kind of notice it, like aside from a couple notable ones where, in and out of the lineup and everything, there wasn't too many like, oh, that guy hasn't scored in like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Everyone seemingly, got out of their slumps quicker because it just felt like they were more committed to the process and like happy about just getting it done and playing the game they love. And it's fantastic.
It is. Yeah. And I can't say enough about Adam Lowry this season. I mean, you take into account, excuse me, the off ice stuff, the locker room culture, him being a captain for the first time, and this culture taking like a different step in a new direction after the Blake Wheeler era. And you take all of that, and then you combine it with what he did on the ice. It's unbelievable. That third line, Don Dawson brought it up here. His X factor is Nino, streaky scorer who's due for a few. Nina Ryder and Lowry and Appleton, because Lowry and Appleton work well together as well. That third line has been so good this year. Rick Bowness loves to put them against the other team's best. They play tough minutes. They win tough minutes. Like they win their minutes against the other team's best lines. It's so rare to have a third line that does that. And Adam Lowry is at the center of it all. He's like I hand out the hardest working Jet every week on my Winnipeg Jets weekly for WST, and he could genuinely win it every week. Like there's not a game, not a shift that Adam Lowry takes off. There hasn't been in his whole career. This year he's added a scoring touch, an offensive touch with Niederreiter joining that line, and man, he's and then I didn't even mention the off ice stuff in all of that.
Oh,
Like he's
yeah.
he's
I will
he's
say he does
completely changed.
occasionally frighten me a little when I walk into like a co-op or something and there's a cardboard cutout of Adam Lowry and I'm just like, oh,
Whoa, yeah.
life size.
If it's life size, yeah, you're like, whoa. No, but like there's a winning culture in Winnipeg, and it's because of Lowry. It's because of Rick Bowness. Like it's I don't know. I don't know if you agree with the fact that there's like a winning culture. That's what it feels like now. Is like the expectation is that they're gonna win,
It
and
surrounds
they
every
know they're a good
aspect
team.
of this team right now. Like it just seems like the incredible sort of just like it feels like everything shifted after last year.
It really did.
Um where like even here with what CMAC is saying, where the media crew, like things like
Oh,
Runway and Home Ice, those
did you see
series
the hype
giving.
video yesterday? Sorry to cut you
Yes,
off. Did you see the hype video? Holy, I quote tweeted it and was like, "This is so incredibly well done." I feel like as communication students, we can appreciate like how much time and effort that took and how difficult that is to pull
oh,
off. Like people would just watch that video and get hyped up, but like that took so much time, so much effort, so difficult to like the drawings and everything that they put on there. Amazing hype video. Amazing hype video. If you haven't seen
it's
it, go
just
check it out.
incredible.
It's on the Jets socials. But go ahead.
But no, like It matters when your organizational philosophy seems to just focus on being the best at all aspects of it as it can be.
Yeah, totally.
And whether that's on or off the ice, it's the media teams, the post game, like even like the things with like ground control, and
Yeah,
the interviews they get on there, and it matters because it's like the
totally.
optics on the organization have been iffy this year with all the attendance stuff. And then there was a lot of questions going into the year, and it's truly like it's one of those moments where they had the chance to really sort of establish themselves. It's like, hey, listen, this is who we are. This is what we're going to show, and everyone can see how we bond. That's the thing. The runway things and showing on the road and everything, it shows
Yeah,
too how close the team is, and how they chat and everything, and like
yeah.
it's just everything over the last year has just been incredible.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Sarah Orlesky love in the chat, and look, like she's incredible. The work that she does, and the runway crew, and that whole the Jets social media team in general. Like you see videos where players are walking out and like predicting who's going to win the Masters, or like trying to solve a math question, and like they're hilarious. And it's like that was an idea from someone, and it was executed perfectly. And yeah, I can't say enough good things. As communication students, we're experts in this field. We can assess how a social media team is doing, and trust me, the Jets are getting A pluses across the board. Do you want to take a break and then come back with questions now? We're expecting to have Murat on at 10. He said he's down at the rink today. There's an optional skate, and he said he's going to join us from there, which is pretty cool.
Wow. On
So yeah,
location.
we'll have Murat live on location coming up at around 10. So stick around. But right now we're going to take a break. We're going to move our usual questions portion of the episode up till now. So that'll lead us into Marat Atesh joining the program. So stick around after this word from DraftKings.
The chase for the Stanley Cup is on, and if you're looking to light the lamp, nothing beats DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. From the start of playoff beards all the way till hoisting the cup, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back into the 10th edition of LFP Live. My name is Connor. I've got Brian here with me. Elliott couldn't make it today, but we are going to have Marat Atesh join the program in 20 minutes. Drop your questions below. I put the comment up there. We're going to get to the questions portion of the episode early. Usually we end the show with that, but Marat Atesh is joining us, and we're super excited for that. So we're going to do the questions now. Before we do that, while you guys are dropping your questions down below, something happened this morning, Brian. Something happened.
Oh boy.
And if people are longtime LFP Live listeners, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about here, because this has been a thing since episode 1. I got a delivery from the Sammy Smokes. Got a puck.
Oh,
A puck. And this is a little inside joke here. Hold on. Let me make sure I don't like spill it everywhere. Playoff brisket.
playoff brisket.
Yes. From the Sammy Smokes. Look at that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like I said to like, the Jets aren't losing tonight. Like they're winning. Like we got playoff brisket.
You got the brisket
live on the show. Yeah, exactly. So now I have lunch, or I have my dinner at the game. Look at that. It's perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much to Sammy Smokes Barbecue for dropping that.
Before we started recording, you were like, I was surprised for you. I had no idea what to expect. I did not anticipate you pulling out a full container of brisket on the show today.
There's another one. This is just
another
one of two. There's another one. Yes, Brian. He said he was up at 2 a.m. to take it off the grill. Yeah,
The
dedication.
dedication.
That's what I'm saying. That's thank you so much, Sammy Smokes, for the gift, for the puck. And I've got another brisket thing in the fridge downstairs. And Matt is Matt is jealous. What? Any leftovers? Yeah, if you are a longtime listener of LFP Live, of course, we open up the questions every single time. The very first episode, we opened up the questions, and Sammy Smokes asked if we liked brisket, pulled pork, or steak. I believe was the three. I don't
Yeah.
remember what the three. What we like more. We voted a good brisket, and now we can't go an episode without bringing up brisket on LFP Live. So, um, yeah, people are saying looks amazing. Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you, Sammy Smokes, for bringing me the brisket. Let's get into the questions and for being a supporter of Level Flight. We really appreciate it. Let's get into it, Brian. Let's start with this one. Do you think the top line is the Jets' weakness in this series? They've been on and off all series. I'll let you take that one.
I would think it's a weakness. We've seen a little bit of a resurgence here late in the season where they have broken even a little bit more, than they had in several of the previous games. But I do think it all matters and hinges on who they get matched up against. I think there's a real opportunity here for Rick Bonus to try and get them out there against the bottom six as much as possible, because I think
Yeah.
that will matter a lot. And I truly think that the second line can handle, and like, I mean, handle the Avs second line.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so too.
so I definitely, I think it's a weakness though, based on, historical results saying that those three don't do very well together in terms of, anything predictive. Like, they allow a lot of shots when they're on the ice. Recently, they have cut down on the high danger chances against, which matters a
Mm,
lot because shots from way out are going to be, there we go, Sammy Smokes.
Sammy
Um,
Smokes. There it
like
is.
it,
Yeah,
like
keep going.
shots from outside, like the danger areas, though, Hellebuck is going to save, 10 times out of 10. So I truly think that, um, if they can limit the high danger chances and just like score a couple of goals, I feel like that top line that's doing all they can really do.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, sorry, the brisket discourse is now taking place. I think this is gonna derail the show. Um
Gotta
yeah,
get our
don't
brisket chats out before Marat comes on.
well, we gotta ask Murat. Maybe we'll ask him. He'll
Marat,
get
you a
he'll
brisket
get
guy?
the age old question. Yeah, are you a brisket guy, pulled pork? Like where are you at on that? Um okay, let's get into more of these questions. Does Ehlers have a wrist injury? His shot does not seem to be as good. I don't as far as I know, no. He's got what 25 goals. I think that second line has been great. We talked about it. His main threat, I should say, is his speed, obviously his feet. But no, I don't think he does. Is McKinnon getting burnt out from carrying the whole team on his back for so long? I mean, he plays a lot of minutes, but
And he plays
he's kind
angry
of
all the time.
plays angry, like he hates the ice when he skates. And it's like he's played these many minutes for so long. I don't think the first round of the playoffs is when he's going to slow down. I think if he were to make it to the conference finals or the Stanley Cup finals, playing 30 minutes a night, then you might start to see some burnout. But I don't think you're gonna see any signs of fatigue here in the first round, which means the Jets are getting the best version of Nathan McKinnon. Brian, I want to ask you this one. How important is the first goal today? I think our record at home in the playoffs is brutal. Need some positive to work with. That's a question from Joel. First goal today. How important is it?
I truly think if you can get a goal in the first like 5 minutes when the crowd's still buzzing from like the pregame
Oh
stuff,
man. Yeah.
it will not quiet down in there for the rest of the game, and that matters a ton. Um, so I know I think that first goal is huge.
Yeah. I agree. Could Gus Bus win himself a full-time spot in the playoffs? I don't think so. Unless he scores like a goal tonight and has a really strong game and then Barron misses another game and he scores again. Like, I don't know. Morgan Barron's been so good this year that I think it would be a,
I
a,
do
a
think,
tall mountain. Like there's an avenue for it for sure.
and
But
especially
I
for
think,
next year too. Like I feel
oh
like
yeah, yeah,
I feel like in the last, especially the last while, he's done enough to earn himself, I think, a longer look next year. It's just there's so many people right now rotating in and out of that last spot that it's hard
yeah,
to say here's the full time guy, especially when Barron's the one who's sitting out right now because of the injury.
totally. Adam S. Do they re-sign DeMello? I need to know. Smoke is secured for a few more seasons. That might be a jersey related question. That's the sense I'm getting there. But Dylan DeMello has been so good for the Jets. What, a 3rd round pick, and he's here for 4 years. Now he's on the top pair, the ideal partner for Josh Morrissey. Like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you were a Jets player, who would you be on the current team? Brian, who's your favorite? Or wait, am I misreading this? It's to rephrase
No,
it. Like,
you're
who's your
assigning
favorite Jet
yourself to like
to a player?
a player. So like you got to think of like their style and how they play and how
Josh
does it relate to
Morrissey.
you.
I'm gonna go Josh Morrissey. He just roams, and it just seems like he's having so much fun. When he takes over games, he's just everywhere on the ice. To be able to move like that would be just fun. To just be along for the ride of playing in an NHL game and flying around like that. So Morrissey for me.
I think for me, it's going to be Vlad Nemestikov. Easygoing, adaptable, willing to do whatever is asked. If you want to be up top, great. If you want to, play a role, great. Hardworking, just give it your all.
Yeah. Yeah. Give that same effort every time, that 100% effort every time. And KFC seems to have now recovered mentally from his injury. I wonder if it was a mental block for him, because we admitted it. A lot of people admitted it. He didn't look like himself when he came back. Now he looks like himself. He looks explosive. He's skating. He scored 2 goals in that game against the Kraken, and then sat out the last game of the season. But I think he's looking a lot better. I don't know about you. Do you agree? That
Yeah,
Kyle
no,
Connor's
I'd
looked,
agree. Like he
yeah.
looks like almost a different player in the last couple weeks here.
There's a smoker like
Smoker
brisket
discourse.
chicken discussion in the chat
Chicken
here.
discussion.
I think chicken discussion. There's a lot going on. Will Scheifele elevate his game and become the 2018 shooter that scored 15 goals? I don't know if I could see him going on that much of a tear, like setting an
I feel like
NHL
he taps
record.
into it though.
I think, and this was a big thing at practice yesterday. Shout out Jacob Stoller, who I go to basically every game with. See him later, going to the game tonight. The press box, and like he asked him, against a guy like Nathan McKinnon, do you kind of like take that as motivation to like play against the best and like step up and really test where you're at as a player? And Scheifele was like, yeah, you want to play against the best. Rick Bowness said the same thing. He was like, yeah, best players want to play against the best players. I think Scheifele and Kyle Connor and that top line elevate their game tonight, because, hey, they're the top line. We know the Avalanche's top line is dynamite. You got to elevate your game, right? You got to elevate. Thank you, Chris. Winnipeg Jets podcast media teams and shows is top shelf and best in Canada. There's so many good podcasts on the Winnipeg Jets. It's not even funny, but thank you for including us in that. We are a Winnipeg Jets podcast, so we'll take it. Pulled pork. People are Montreal smoked meat from Schwartz. That sounds fantastic. LFP tailgate party, briskets, and all sorts of barbecue. We'll see if Sammy Smokes can. Maybe we'll do an LFP live from Sammy Smokes, having some brisket. That would be quite something. Question: why is street party limited to 5,000 people? Seems low. That's a great question. I mean, there was no limit, and then I do understand why they limited it in the first place. But last year, I believe they had the 5,000 people on, what is that, Donald's and
Yeah,
it was
and
Donald and some of that. And then and Graham, and then they had a Hargrave street party where they had another like 1,000, 2,000 people. That one was more expensive because you're
yeah, I think they have that again.
and oh, they do? I didn't see
No,
that.
I feel like in like the True North Square there. So
Okay. I didn't know that. I honestly thought that they left that out this year. I didn't see it anywhere or something. So Chuck Hellebuck has landed.
all right,
Breaking
book
news.
it.
Yeah. Like, we got brisket. We've got Chuck Hellebuck in the building. The vibes are
good.
sky high. Sky high. We'd love to see LFP, WST, KNR, and IC host playoff game tailgate parties. I'd be doing double duty on that. I'd have to run back and forth from,
Like one of those,
to another.
how like you see parents wearing those jerseys that have like it down the middle if they have two brothers. Just do that, but with like LFP, WST.
For sure. Great idea, tailgate party. Absolutely. Gus could earn a spot over Iafallo. It's a good point. He could. I think the Jets do value Iafallo's playoff experience, though. So that's another one. Matt Hyman bringing up a great point, or a great question here. Scale of 1 to 10, what's everyone's excitement level? He said 9.7. Drop down below on a scale of 1 to 10 what your excitement level is. Rat River Revel is at a 9. DeMello is so underrated. I agree. James Robinson. We have a history of losing impact players in the first round. That is true. The Jets have been very unlucky with injuries in the playoffs. Which loss would have the biggest impact? I think last year you can't get any worse than that. What, Morrissey and Shifley and Ehlers?
Yep.
Like for skaters, that's it. That's the three. Like, I don't know. That's the three players I think would have the biggest impact if they were to lose it. Who, just phrasing it maybe away from the injuries to put a lighter spin on it. Which three players do you think, skaters, do you think will have the biggest impact in the series on the Jets?
For me, it's got to be. I can't think of anyone else other than Josh Morrissey to start.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, to kind of bring it back to the initial thing there, where I honestly think that losing Morrissey is like a death blow for the Jets at any point. But I think, yeah, you can't live without Josh Morrissey. You really can't live without. I would say it would be a struggle without Adam Lowry, because I've seen a lot of, like, talk about how, he is, he's a third liner, but he's so much more than that. Like, I saw a thing recently where, in terms of the value he's bringing to the team right now, it's like he's having a second career peak. Like, it is.
That was Garrett Hole who tweeted that out. Who we had on episode 84 of the LFP.
Yes.
But yes, he tweeted that out, and it's like he peaked at like 24, 25. As players do, started to slowly decline, and then has now peaked and is having the best season of his career, value-wise, like analytical
It's
value-wise. It's
incredible.
crazy.
And it's also, he makes everyone around him better. Like, it's truly, if he were to go down, which I think he would have to drag his dead body out before he left the lineup. It would kill a lot of the. I think the vibe would shatter without
Yeah,
him, because
for sure.
he is the guy. He's the captain. It could be like, it's just truly one of those players that he makes an impact in a different way than everyone else, but it's just an impact nonetheless.
Totally. I agree. I wanted to get to this question and I missed it. It was from 15 minutes ago. But Matt, what type of coffee do you guys drink? Espresso, Keurig? What could it be? I drink Nespresso. We have an espresso machine here. It's great. And then when I don't, I have an iced coffee here. It's like what is it? Stoke. It's at Costco.
Oh yeah.
Basically, they sell it. It's a cold brew iced coffee. There's two big things of it. I think it's great. And I'm a big I prefer iced coffee to hot coffee. Obviously, in the winter, I'll go for Nespresso and things of that nature. But Brian, I know you're a big Nespresso guy.
Yeah, today I'm still just wrapping it up here. I've got the Nespresso, I think it's Costa Rica, which is just like a
Costa
little bit
Rica.
stronger.
Nice.
I think it's the Grand Lungo, so it's only like a half cup. So I space
Nice.
things out, not having the full cup at all times, but I have a couple half cups and it's perfect.
Yeah,
But no, yeah, I default a lot to my Nespresso, and lots of iced coffees as well. I've
yep.
got like a few of those little pods that you're supposed to brew over ice. So
Totally. How important is home ice line matchups in this series? I will say it's very important. We've talked a lot about
I think
how
it's huge.
Adam Lowry is going to be against Nathan McKinnon and things of that nature. But Lowry himself even said Friday, like, yes, you have the last change, you have line matchups, but that doesn't mean that Adam Lowry is going to be stapled to Nathan McKinnon's hip for 25 minutes of the game. Like, Adam Lowry can't play 25 minutes. It just won't happen. So you're going to need more than just Adam Lowry,
Yep.
just Niederreiter and Mason Appleton to get that done. And I think the Jets know that when you're on the ice with 29, don't turn the puck over. Easier said than done, obviously, because he's the best player in the league in transition, him or Connor McDavid. So having Lowry out there as much as you can and having home ice is very important. But I think you can't rely on just that one line to limit him in a way. A lot of people dropping their excitement levels 10, 14 off the scale, 8.5. Unbelievable. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm an 11. Shuffles, 9, 10. Yeah. Chuck Hellebuyck,
See,
international
mine's up
influencer.
there, but like,
Yeah.
it's my excitement is probably at an 8. If you combine excitement and nervousness, I would be at a 10.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I Arvid Holm recalled from the Avalanche. Interesting.
Revenge game.
Revenge game incoming. Monahan, Scheifele, and Lowry making the biggest impact. Monahan, someone brought up, I think it was CMAC brought it up earlier. Casey Middlestat's kind of inexperience on in a playoff setting. He's been a Buffalo Sabre his whole career. He hasn't made the playoffs. So I think Sean Monahan, who's been in the playoffs, that'll be big. Sammy Smokes giving Red River Rebel the how to smoke the chicken. There you go. Have all day. Look, they're literally having a discussion here about how like this is the best YouTube chat. This is the best. Everyone's out here eating good today on a playoff Sunday. What's better? Low and slow brewed coffee. Yes. Do you remember the analogy that was made on the first episode about how the Jets are low and slow and then the explosion of flavor in the third period? This Stoke coffee on the side of it says low and slow. And I sent that photo to Sammy.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Again, another sign that the Jets are winning today. Just another sign. Was home with the Moose last season. Yeah. He struggled kind of bit. And yeah, there we go. Matt Hyman, new coffee to try. There we go. Is Lambert a Jet next season? From Adam S. Brian, what do you think? I'd lean no, but you go ahead.
I would say no to start. But
yeah,
I feel like he will play games next season because someone's like that's the thing. I don't recall a year where a top 6 forward hasn't got hurt recently. So
right.
I feel like he plays games next year. And I mean, with what we saw against Vancouver, his style works because no one can really catch him. He's so incredibly fast and evasive, and I would love to see that for in like an extended period of time in the NHL.
I would too. And a lot of people are asking about the Arvid Holm thing. It was funny yesterday, or not yesterday, maybe it was Friday. Colin Delia was recalled under emergency conditions, and Rick Bowness was set to speak in like an hour. That 1 hour on Twitter, people were losing their minds. They were like, "Is Connor Hellebuyck hurt? Oh my God, what happened? Did Laurent Brossoit get hurt in the last game? What happened?" No, nobody's injured. Teams do this. Arvid Holm was just recalled by the Avalanche. Teams want a third goalie around for the playoffs in case of an injury. Then you don't have to go to an e-bug. Well, if 2 goalies get hurt, then you'll have to. Well, I don't even know how that works actually. If Colin Delia is here or Arvid Holm is here, and there's 2 goalie injuries in the same game, would they come in or would it be an e-bug?
No, it would have to be an e-bug because technically it can
They're
only be one. Yeah, it could be only one of the goalies who are starter or backup or the emergency backup goalie.
Right. So, that's an interesting like NHL rules thing that I wasn't too sure of. It's 10:01. Yes, totally. It's 10:01. We're waiting on Marat Atesh. He is down at practice, so it might be a little bit delayed. But when he does join, we're going to preview game 1 and first round preview, get his perspective. We've talked a lot here about the goaltending matchup, about I thought Gabriel Velarde, underrated impact, the second line, the Jets' depth, Josh Morrissey. Thoughts on the impact of Drouin out? We did talk about a little bit off the top. We basically talked about how he's not a top line player, but he was on the Avs top line because he's a player that works well with McKinnon. So I think that does make a really big impact. And no worries on just arriving 5 minutes ago. We do realize that it's a Sunday morning. People like to sleep in. That's okay. Biggest sign, the sunshine and weather plus 16 degrees Celsius here on a Sunday. The people at the Whiteout Party are going to be having a great time out in the sun. Let's just say that. Real quick, Brian, I want to get your thoughts on the third pairing of Logan Stanley and Dylan Sandberg. There's some comments earlier on about Stanley. He's won a spot. He's played great. You on the last LFP Live, I believe, brought up the fact that they might play Stanley at home to kind of shelter his matchups a little bit. What are you looking for from the third pair? Do you have confidence in that pairing going into game 1 in about a few hours here?
I feel like the biggest thing for them is to really, maintain their composure if they do get outside of their sort of sheltered role. Because I know that there is, there's been a lot of talk about who they actually play against. And Obviously, like when that pairing was Sandberg Schmidt, their minutes were fairly sheltered, but they were absolutely, rock solid defensively. Um, I do think, however, Stanley Sandberg has been fine enough that as a third pairing, I'm not concerned about their play level. They haven't been overly, volatile. Obviously the coaching staff loves what the physicality that and the size that Stanley brings. So I do think that they have played well enough to be a serviceable third pairing. But as we've seen, it's not necessarily you know the biggest matchups. But I think it's just keeping an eye out for what they do against like the players if they get caught out there.
Totally. I agree. That I think Logan Stanley, he's skating better. And I think last year he was in the lineup, he was skating pretty well. He had that ankle injury and then he came back and got another ankle injury. And I think that really put like the nail in the coffin. He wasn't a great skater to begin with, and that like a guy that's 6'7" coming back from ankle injuries, not great. But this year he's completely turned it around. He's moving much better. Um, and yeah, people are asking about Colin Miller here. He's only played a few games. I think the Jets got him for a 4th-round pick. We thought he'd be more of an option, more in that rotation, and would have the opportunity to win a third pairing job. But I don't think that was ever in the Jets' plans. That's what everyone assumed, but I think the Jets just want him here in case of an injury. And look, he's good. He's good depth. Like if the third pairing does struggle tomorrow, game 2, you could start with him. You could start with Nate Schmidt. That's good depth to have for a third pairing and a third pairing into the playoffs. Another penalty killer and shot blocker in Stanley occasionally screens the goalie. Yeah. I think the penalty kill thing is the biggest reason why Stanley's in the lineup. The Jets penalty kill has been rough this year. And now it's kind of turning a corner here down the stretch. Obviously, they've won 8 straight games, so everything's kind of going well. But yeah, he's in for penalty killing, I believe. Murat texted me. They're doing media right now, so we might have to push it back a little bit. He might be coming on at 10:15, 10:20-ish, but he is coming on. We will have Marat Atesh. Thank you to everyone for joining us. The 10th edition of LFP Live. Super excited, like playoff game day edition, nothing better. And 10 straight episodes of our crowds growing. We really appreciate that. The LFP Live, we just started doing this. 10 episodes, 10 Sundays ago, and they've completely changed. Being able to interact with people who listen to our show. We really enjoy these LFP Lives. And yeah, CND Snipes here. My prediction for the Jets game today, 5-2 for Winnipeg. Brian, before we bring Marat Atesh in, as he's currently, hard at work for The Athletic, doing media availabilities, what is your prediction? Everyone in chat, drop your prediction below. Jets Avs, 6 p.m. Game 1. What's your prediction, Brian?
For some reason, my gut pick was 4-2 Jets, which is coincidentally also my pick for how the series is going to shake out.
Right.
But no, it feels like it'll be, I think, close for longer than I think everyone would appreciate it. Everyone's, heart health would appreciate. But it feels like, Stanley Cup playoffs are all about that big third period goal.
Yeah.
So it feels like it'll be 2-2 heading into the third, and then someone scoring a big goal, and then add the empty netter.
Tyler
Call it a day.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. A lot of people are, obviously predicting the Jets to win. I think so too. I think the Jets do take game 1 here tonight. And I think, I don't know. I don't know. Like it looks so easy in the regular season. It's not going to be that easy. But I still love the way that the Jets match up against the Avs in this series.
Mm-hmm.
And I think game 1, Drew N being out, the Winnipeg whiteout, the crowd behind the Jets, the fact they're on an 8-game winning streak coming in, I do think they take game 1 tonight. And let's say 4-1. 4-1 Jets. Nathan McKinnon scores the 1 goal for Colorado. Can't hold him down on the power play. Let's say the Jets dominate at 5-on-5. That's my prediction. Any empty netters, Brian? And if so, who? Everyone's saying with an empty netter. You always gotta.
I think it's you kind of have to book it where it's going to be either
Connor
Mark
or
Scheifele or
Scheifele.
Kyle Connor.
Yeah,
Like it's
no one
you
else
kind
scores
of
like
just have to book it like that. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't recall many other you know, like guys that are just
Connor Hellebuyck.
feasting on the that would be I don't think you would
In
ever
the
hear
yeah,
a louder building than if Connor Hellebuck scores a
a
goalie
goalie goal in the
goal.
playoffs.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. What I forget what game it was, but he basically got the puck behind the net, went to fire it, and or he didn't go to fire it. Sorry, the crowd was telling him to fire it. They're all yelling "shoot," and then he kind of rimmed it around the boards, and everyone kind of booed him. But yeah, that would be hilarious if Connor Hellebuyck even attempted a goalie goal in the playoffs. Like, you never think a random Tuesday night game against the Blue Jackets would be the time to attempt it, not game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But yeah,
Yeah.
hey. Connor, great job on the Hockey Writers Series preview show. Thank you very much. I want to get to your piece, Brian. You compared the 2017-18 Jets to this year's Jets. It was a really fun read. If people haven't checked it out, go check it out. I'll just give you the floor. You compared the two teams, the two best teams in Jets franchise history. What did you find? Basically, is what I'm asking here.
It's interesting because I went line by line, pairing by pairing, and I compared it to what we see now. And it's it's interesting because I feel like each line, I aside from in the forward side of things, three
Mhm.
out of four lines, I sort of gave the edge to the 2017-18 team. But it feels like the sum of the parts situation here is the current rendition of the Jets stack up just as well. And it's interesting because normally you look at, you compare line by line, and if you can say one team has better lines at that time, they're going to be the better team. But I don't know if I can consciously. We have like the benefit of knowing what they did and how they did it.
Totally.
And I really think that 2017-18 team was special. And I got to drop a Dustin Bufflin reference because he was on
Oh
on that
yeah,
because I went to game one against Minnesota. So that second pairing was Joe Morrow and Dustin Bufflin. But my whole thing was if you have a pairing with Dustin Bufflin, it doesn't matter who's on the other side. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
but no, it was interesting too because I got to do a lot of comparisons to players who were still here, where I was like talking about how the actual first pairing now, despite it still having Josh Morrissey on it, is better at the very least purely because of how much better Josh Morrissey is now than he was in 2018.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like in 2018, he was like a good number three, good number four defenseman playing on the top line, or on the top pairing, like you said. And yeah, he's so much better now. Dylan DeMello is the perfect pair for him. And like Trouba was great, and Trouba was better than Morrissey at the time. But Josh Morrissey's better than everyone's been like since then.
Yeah,
On that team, Dustin Bufflin, he's up there with him. He broke the franchise record for defensive points in a season last year. Yeah, totally. Can we go to Gary Bettman while we wait for Murat? Murat texted me, he said, coach is coming up right now, and you'll hop on right after. So let's say 10:20, 10:25. We keep pushing it back. Murat's doing his job. But hey, we're just excited that he's able to come on, and hey, we'll go long. It's a playoff game day edition of LFP Live. We do not mind going long.
absolutely.
Let's do it. I don't know where I want to go with this. There were so many questions that I missed earlier. Um, an Apple's empty netter. Yeah, the third line could be out there as well, protecting the lead late.
Mason Appleton scoring a power play goal with like 30 seconds left.
To win it, like the game winner.
No, just
Oh,
just late. The Jets are up like 4-2 or something.
yeah.
Toss out that line to keep things under control. But no, where we could actually go with this to sort
Mhm.
of fill up the next little bit. Jets are the only playoff team that are currently
Yeah.
about to get started. The Moose are about to get started in
Yes.
Texas.
Yes.
It's the Texas Stars. I'm curious with you too because you spent all of last year covering the Moose.
Mhm.
Um, how important is it for these young guys that are down there to get some playoff experience like this? Even that's the thing, like it's going to be tough for them. They come in as the lower seed, but I want to know sort of what you've seen, that the importance of getting meaningful minutes in a playoff game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, who was it? John Tortorella. I bring up this quote all the time. If you're a longtime listener of the LFP, this is probably my 18th time bringing it up. But Tortorella had a quote basically at the end of the first Flyers season that he was head coach, and the quote was long about how the focus is getting those AHL players and having them have a run in the playoffs, because that does honestly more for their development than the regular season does. Like having Brad Lambert go into a playoff setting against the Texas Stars and put up a few goals, in a series, be the guy in a series, face the toughest matchups. Like that is as close as you can replicate NHL level talent in the AHL, is in AHL playoff hockey. I will say, I don't hate their chances against Texas because their best player, Logan Stankoven, is up with the Stars and killing it with the Stars. But I don't hate. Oh, sorry, you're bringing up a comment there.
Yeah,
They
just
did
like
just dummy Texas twice in a row, and they are without their best player. And if the Moose are able to win a playoff series, then they'd go play Milwaukee, and they'd have some home games here in Winnipeg, which I definitely want to go check out, because I want
100%.
to see Brad Lambert. And I don't know if you saw Colby Barlow last night, first career NHL goal or AHL goal. Sorry, whoa, that was Nikita Chibrikov. My bad.
Yeah,
And yeah, C-Mac bringing it up here, a KC bomb on the power play. It was very, very similar to Kyle Connor. He's right on that right circle, got the pass one timer. Thomas Milic, brought up by Matt Hyman. He has been so good for the Moose. They needed stable goaltending. That's the reason they were so like more miss than hit in the first half of the year. And Milic has come in and done just that. What have you seen? Or you asked me the question, what do you think it could do for these players to go through a playoff run in the Calder Cup? And which players, I know Ville Heinola just had like a 5-point night the other night. Which players are you watching, especially as the Moose get going in their playoffs?
I think what you just had up there was actually the biggest one for me. Is it's Thomas Milic.
Yeah,
He came in this year starting in the ECHL and has now taken the starting job, and now he gets to jump into, from what we can tell, is an environment that's kind of familiar to him. I mean, he doesn't seemingly deal poorly with pressure. It's a great thing for a young goalie to get into these very tough situations.
yeah,
Um, like I mean, there's obviously him. There's the young guys with Chiprikov and Lambert and Barlow. That matters too, but I feel like it's just seeing that team crest that hump that they've kind of been stuck behind for a while here, where it just doesn't seem like they
totally.
can really win a series. And I remember back in the late 2000s there, where the Moose were just this powerhouse. In like the 2008 2009 Calder Cup Finals, they won the AHL's version of the President's Trophy that year as well. And obviously, it's a little bit different at the AHL level. And I know that there's been some up and down attendance with the Moose, but if you're gonna go watch some exciting hockey, that's the place to be. Like it's like you get some really
Yeah,
great young players, and if they can come back here and play some games here, I'd love to see them fill up as much as they can in a Canada Life Center there.
yeah, and we talked about how exciting Brad Lambert was to watch in a Winnipeg Jets uniform against NHL players. Imagine when the competition is lower and he can even play into his strength and skate around everyone even more, at an even higher level. Corey bringing up Jets are set for years to come with the players down with the Moose. I was having this conversation the other day with Jacob Stoller, of the Hockey News. You bring in Brad Lambert, Ville Heinola, Rucker McGroarty, Elias Salomonson's having a great year over in Skellefteå. Do you think the Jets are kind of, I don't want to say set, but for the next like 3 to 4 years, with Connor Hellebuck still in his prime, with an infusion of youth, maybe they re-sign Monahan to a 2-year deal this year to be the 2C. while Brad Lambert gets going in that regard. Could you see the Jets being like a competitive team for the next 4 years of the Hellebuck window? Obviously, there are things that can happen, but
Yeah.
where are you at on kind of the long term look of the Jets over the next 4 to 5 years?
In terms of raw talent, I look at this team in the future and just see once these guys sort of it'll be like a changing of the guard thing where it feels like you can kind of like actually kind of picture certain spots where you're like this
Yeah,
person is going to leave at such and such time. You know, you can kind of pencil guys in, and doing that is so much fun because then you start wondering, oh wow, what can Brad Lambert do in the top six, or what can
right.
Nikita
Yeah,
Chibrikov do in a regular role? Like I I do think, and as you said, like there's a lot of things that can happen in that little, the not so distant future. But
yeah,
on the surface level, you look at these prospects and you can't help but sort of salivate at the idea of just being able to just plug in and play when guys leave and just bring in a new young guy that they have in the system.
totally. And I agree with you. It is fun to do that. Kind of look ahead and say, okay, well, if this guy walks, then Rucker McGrory can slide in there, and if Sean Monahan walks, then maybe not next year, but the year after, Brad Lambert can slide in there. It is fun to have that long term look in these young, exciting players, and just the way that they kind of, I don't know, the way they carry themselves on the ice is also an entertaining way. Like Brad Lambert's a fascinating player. Rucker McGrory is like a modern day power forward that can score, and he had like a huge hit in the gold medal game against Sweden. He's going to be so much fun to watch. Only bringing up the frauds comment. Ehlers confirmed the frauds comment is bulletin board material. I'm going to shout out Jacob again because he had a piece on the whole frauds thing. He talked to Josh Morrissey and Adam Lowry, two players on the leadership group for the Jets, and both those players basically said like, yeah, we heard it, and it's up to us to go prove whoever that is wrong. Whoever it is, I think we have some pretty good guesses, but I think that is bulletin board material for a lot of the Jets, because the full comment was they're the biggest frauds in the league and they're going to lose in the first round. So if they're able to win in the first round, then they can completely dispel that. And if they beat Colorado, they're not frauds. And a lot of people here know that they're not frauds. So it's up to them to prove it. I agree. What do you think about them kind of using the frauds thing as fuel as we near game one here?
It's not dissimilar to me than the Carolina Hurricanes bunch of jerks thing, where they used it as a rallying point and ended up going fairly far in the playoffs that year. Where there's something about the external noise that if it reaches sort of the internal crowd and they can use it for motivation, I think it's great.
I think so too.
Like, there's a lot of reasons as to why we can assume that, someone in the Western Conference would call, the Jets frauds, but
Yeah.
ultimately, the only people who care whether they're frauds or not are the people in that room. Like
Yep.
they know that they have expectations on them. They know that people are watching them, and they can doubt all they want, but they know what they've got. And using that comment as fuel, I think, is terrific because it's just like a level of like, hey, we'll show you frauds, and then go and win a couple rounds, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah, that'd be great.
It would be. I just got the message from Murat. He's on his way upstairs and setting up. So we will have Marat Atesh joining us, I'd say, in the next 5 minutes to help preview this series. Game one starts tonight at 6 p.m. And yeah, I'm super excited. I'm already here in the building with 15,000 other fans.
Well, it's kind of well, you really got some
It's packed.
incredible noise cancellation on that microphone of
Yeah.
yours.
I'm just going like this, and like all the noise. It's dead silent in here. Everyone's just so nervous. No, Jacob Julian. I want to bring this
Yeah,
up. He's having an unreal, not even season, but playoff run. Back-to-back hat tricks in the OHL playoffs, as CMAC brought up here. 6'3", 190 pounds. He's a center. He was taken late, I believe the fourth round, if I'm not mistaken, last year. and he just like shot up. The last year he had 16 points in 40 games, and I believe this year he had like 63 in 40, and then yeah, back-to-back hat tricks in the playoffs. Do you think the Jets kind of have something there with Jacob Julian? Like, I know we're going deep into the rabbit hole here. Like, there's a playoff game today, and we're talking about Jacob Julian. But
Yeah.
what like this has kind of come out of nowhere. I'm just gonna double check his stats here, but what have you
Yeah,
been
no, I
impressed with?
mean, in terms of listen, this is way far out, and I hate NHL comparisons to guys that you're not exactly sure sort of where they're gonna be at. But in terms of some of his positioning, his size, and his movements, I've heard some talk about him being a form of what makes Adam Lowry good,
Mhm.
where he's got that level of aggressiveness, he's got that, incredible, tenacious, way of playing. But then there's that scoring touch. He's got a couple hat
Yeah,
tricks in the playoffs already. So if I can get some sort of cross between an Adam Lowry and a scorer, I will be so happy to get that from someone who when they picked him, I wasn't actually, you know, too high on, but now I'm happy to be wrong. That's the thing. I am so happy to be wrong about prospects because
mhm.
sometimes it's just so hard to predict. So
Yeah, that is true. Like, so much can happen with prospects, and we've talked about how goalies are voodoo, but in the end, like players are voodoo, prospects are voodoo. Like you can have these outlooks for players, and like Elias Salomonsson has done everything that you could possibly want him to do in his first 2 years post draft here. And he'll be on the Moose next year. What if he struggles in a pro style in the AHL, right? It's going to be really interesting to watch these prospects graduate to the next level. Marat Atesh is coming up very shortly. Stick around with us on the 10th edition of LFP Live. And as soon as he's in here, we're going to get him up. We're going super long today. Usually we'd be ending it by about now, but hey, it's playoffs. You got to go. And here he is. Marat Atesh is in the waiting room. Let's bring him in. Marat Atesh from The Athletic. Welcome to the 10th edition of LFP Live. How you doing?
I am doing well. I just got out of the Rick Bonus press conference. Set up. My eyes are overlooking the rink right now. The Avs are about to take the ice. It's game one. It's playoffs.
Oh yeah, we're excited. Everyone here in chat is super pumped up. Just real quick, you're down there at the rink. Any noteworthy things coming out of the press conferences from Rick Bonus? Anything that you can share with us ahead of game one?
I think a lot of the focus is going to be on Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar and Mikko Rantanen. I think all the big questions were about that. Mason Appleton spoke to us. He knows what his job is. And I think, I've spoken to him before. There's a little bit of a sense of unfinished business in him, particularly because that line with Nino Niederreiter and Adam Lowry was hot down the stretch last year. Injuries broke it apart. And then they've had the year that they've had now. So they're ready to be challenged. They think that they're up for the challenge. They know that their job is going to be cut out for them against Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, and that's definite. But he also described a sense that the Winnipeg Jets are hungrier this year than at any point in his memory, and that's the one that stood out for me. That's something that okay, where does that come from? And you can go all the way back to a year ago when Rick Bonus was talking about a lack of pushback, all the roster changes since then, the season that they've had. There is something palpable down here today about a hungry group of Winnipeg Jets.
That's good to know. Just real quick before Brian's going to ask you a question next, but I want to know are the towels all over the seats there? You're in the arena. Is it white everywhere?
No towels yet. No, I'm looking
No
around to
towels
see
yet.
if they've started somewhere. They're cleaning the glass. There is staff working,
Okay.
but I don't see the towels yet.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, Brian, go ahead.
yeah, I mean the biggest thing for me, and especially now with Drouin out and you're moving Rantanen up to that top line, how important is it for the rest of the Jets forward group to really take advantage of the fact that now they've kind of stacked up the bulk of their scoring talent on one line?
I mean, that's the game right there, right? I mean, certainly it's going to be about systems play and teams play, but if you're zooming into those matchups with those star players, Colorado's one of those teams like Edmonton a few years ago where, they have depth, but their star power and their top end talent is just on another level. And their depth is maybe not as strong compared to the rest of, not as compared to the Winnipeg Jets, you would say. So that's the bet. Go toe to toe with that MacKinnon line. Your work's cut out for you on that point. people talk about shutting down McKinnon because he lost against Seattle last year. He scored 7 points. He was +6 at 5-on-5. He's got 1.3 points per game in his playoff career, which is third only to Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux among players who've played at least 50 playoff games. Like, he's a freak. And Mikko Rantanen's numbers are great in the playoffs as well. So it's going to be a game about doing the best that Winnipeg can against those two players, and certainly being active in picking up Cale Makar as he's jumping into the play as well. I'm sure they'll play together a lot. But then that's where it's got to come from, that Nikolai Ehlers, Sean Monahan, Tyler Toffoli line. They've got to be able to score against the Middlestats and whomever else of the Colorado Avalanche. That's where you'd like to think Winnipeg can take over and find its advantage.
Yeah, I do want to ask about that second line later on, but just first on the top line of Scheifele, Velarde, and Connor, you talked about the bet that Nathan MacKinnon is going to outscore these lines so substantially. I was there yesterday at practice. Mark Scheifele was talking about how he wants to elevate his game against a Nathan MacKinnon, going up against the best. Rick Bowness said the best players want to play against the best players. What are you expecting to see out of Mark Scheifele here going up against the likely Hart Trophy winner in Nathan MacKinnon? Are you expecting him to kind of elevate his game ahead of game one of the playoffs?
Yeah, Mark Scheifele has always been a guy who knows who he's playing against. And over the years, there have been times when you get too far down the road of, hey, let's talk about going toe-to-toe with Nathan MacKinnon or Connor McDavid or what have you. And Scheifele will interrupt you and he'll say, hey, we're pretty good players over here too. Like, he wants to be held in that echelon. That's an important thing for him. And I'm certain he's as hungry as he's ever been, because his last 3 postseasons ended early, whether it's injury or suspension. Like, this is a guy that very much wants to be in the fight with his teammates. He wants to have that status going toe-to-toe with the top centers. And even at home, even when Winnipeg has last change and Adam Lowry is going to get that job, well, Mark Scheifele is also going to get that job. On the road, he's definitely going to get that job, because what we've seen from Jared Bednar so far this year is he actually likes to run MacKinnon at Scheifele. One of the reasons Winnipeg won the season series 3-0 is because that bet didn't pay off for Colorado. Right? Like, Winnipeg's top line, we do complain about its defensive ability, and you look at the expected goals for Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde over the course of the season, they're not as good defensively as other groups are, but they were good against Colorado, good enough to lead to the wins. And that's the cat and mouse about all of this. The last thing I'll say, too, on the note of Scheifele's importance, just think about how MacKinnon and Rantanen are going to generate. Colorado's one of the best entry teams in the league. These guys are fast. They move the puck well. They have Makar jumping into the play with them, right? Both of these players, they're not wallflowers. They're big. They're strong. They're going to protect the puck. So once MacKinnon or once Rantanen gets that entry, if they don't have a path to the net right away, they're going to be able to curl into the corner, protect the puck, wait for wave 2. And if that's MacKinnon passing to Rantanen, that means Winnipeg's second forward back, whether that's Connor or Velarde or what have you, is going to have to be extremely important getting to that far post, taking that weak side option. And the Colorado defense is jumping into the play too. So it means Winnipeg's third forward has to play a role defensively as well. That's a tough task against one of the fastest teams, or at least the fastest groups of elite players that you can find in the NHL.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of go here from one assistant captain to the next, and we've talked a lot about forwards so far, but we've mentioned the importance of Cale Makar to the Avalanche, and we know how good he is. But I just want to know sort of your thoughts on sort of how, because we lost him for a bit there in the series last year, but a healthy Josh Morrissey, and his ability to take over games and how important that is in a playoff series.
I mean, Josh Morrissey is, these last 2 years especially, as this creativity has entered his game, that move at the blue line where he's dancing around guys with confidence. He knows his outs. He knows how to read that moment to walk guys at the blue line. The way that he jumps into the play. The foundation of all of that is his skating, which means that he's going to be seeing a lot of that top matchup for sure. Rick Bowness has ultimate confidence. I just asked Bowness about Morrissey actually just a moment ago, and he just talked about his growth over the last couple of years that has led to such a confident player. And he reminded us all that when he used to coach against Winnipeg, he circled Morrissey's name the same way that this very day they're circling the name of Cale Makar. And I think Like, I'll be honest with you, if when I sized up my Norris Trophy ballots, I had Josh Morrissey wherever he ended up on my list higher than Cale Makar in this particular season. I think that Josh Morrissey's all-around game this season was better than it was last year, making his case even stronger than it was 1 year ago. So, yes, Cale Makar at his peak, nobody can touch that. But let's not pretend that Winnipeg doesn't have a really good offensive and all-around defenseman in Josh Morrissey as well.
Yeah, and Josh Morrissey, we talked about Mark Scheifele, and I'm sure we'll ask about the goaltending next. But we talked about this earlier on in the program. I want to get your thoughts. Who is maybe an underrated X factor that you have in this series? There's that second line. I brought up Gabriel Velarde as a guy who can really revitalize that power play and maybe shorten the special teams gap a little bit between these two teams. Is there a player on the Winnipeg Jets that you look at and say, obviously in the playoffs, like third liners, fourth liners score important goals all the time, but is there one player in your mind who you think that guy could really make an impact that's not being talked about enough ahead of game one?
Hey, this is a great question, and the lens that you look through changes how you come up with the answer to this. So I like Velarde as an answer because when he's been on the power play, it's produced like a reasonably good power play. When Gabriel Velarde and Sean Monahan have been on the same power play, it's produced like a very good power play. That specific unit with some of the best numbers in the league in a relatively small sample because not everybody's been healthy, not everybody's been around. But you can look at them and believe that if Gabriel Velarde is, I want to say, quarterbacking it from the goal line, which I'm looking at right now, like that's a strong look. But I want to go deeper down the lineup. I have a tweet from about a month or two ago that says, if Winnipeg does anything special in these playoffs, it's going to be in part because Vladislav Nemestikov's probably big goal. And I know he's lining up on the fourth line, which makes him a deep pull. And who knows if this is actually going to come to fruition. But I think that that's one of Winnipeg's strengths in the series in particular, is that once you get into that bottom six, I believe more in the Jets' bottom six to create. That includes him. He's been able to do it up and down the lineup. And I've talked to the cup winners on the team. I haven't talked to Tyler Toffoli too much about this. I've talked to Laurent Brossoit about this quite a bit. And one of the things that he just does not want to let get lost in the discussion of Vegas's excellence last playoffs was how impactful their fourth line was for them and how confident he is in Winnipeg's fourth line right now. So I'm going to go with Vladdy on this one.
Yeah, that's who I ended up going with as well, just because, I mean, as you mentioned, like the versatility of him too, and his willingness to do anything for the team is just, it doesn't go unnoticed. And I want to get your sort of thoughts on it too, where we spoke a lot about, the team culture this year going into this playoff run just feels so incredibly cohesive. Everything around the organization, the vibes are incredible. What do you think is sort of the importance of having this incredible team culture going into this incredibly pressure-filled environment and seemingly just treating it like another game?
I mean, I think, do you remember 2019 where they had that horrible second half and the St. Louis Blues, Winnipeg played well, but not well enough, right? And the St. Louis Blues pushed them out of that series. This is the takeaway I've mentioned a couple of times, but Brian Little, in conversation with him in the Jets room in St. Louis after that game, my takeaway, I don't know if he'd say this, he was not shocked. There was a sense that, Winnipeg's game had fallen down the stretch. He told me they were spending so much effort trying to find their game that, maybe that had an impact on the series. And he did say that. So I've looked at this year, I compared it to last year where there was also a massive second half slide. And there was a little second half slide here too, right? I mean, like just a month ago, we were all up in arms about the March record. But I think that the floor for this team is so much higher. I think the habits are so much better. I think that they've had another year playing this zone defense that is the foundation of their game. So mentally, psychologically, I'm assuming that it gives you more confidence because these guys fell into a smaller hole than before, and they dug out of it, and they won 8 games to head down into the stretch run here, getting ready for game one tonight. I think they feel like they've been through some crap and overcome it. And I think that's one of the reasons why culturally you're seeing a really confident group of Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, and you mentioned the floor being higher for the team this year, and a big reason for that is because of the goaltending tandem. Connor Hellebuck, he's going to win the Vezina. He's already won the Jennings. Just what can you say about Hellebuck's season, and taking a look at this series in particular, the advantage that the Jets have in net with Hellebuck facing off against Alexander Georgiev of the Avalanche?
I mean, it's nice to have, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan and you're looking around and you're saying, well, who's the best goaltender in the planet this season? Well, hey, you've got them in this series, right? Like Connor Hellebuck, whatever metric you want to look at, whether it's goal saved above expected, whether it's the fact he has the best save percentage amongst guys who were consistent starters for their teams, that Jennings trophy that obviously LB is a big part of as well. There are reasons to believe that Winnipeg has the best goaltending tandem in the playoffs, right? Like, not even in the series. It's meant to be an advantage, and we've seen Georgiev struggle. So it's meant to be one of the difference makers in this series. We've seen what happens in small sample sizes before. If you look at goalies, though, even the very best in the world can have 5-game stretches that look like below average stretches in terms of results, even if they're doing all the right things. Bounces happen, traffic happens, the wrong coverage happens. We saw it against Vegas last year where Connor Hellebuck probably left that series with a lot of fans thinking that he'd been outplayed by Laurent Brossoit, and that was one of the reasons why Winnipeg wasn't able to steal it. This stuff happens. Perception is about results. And even though I believe Connor Hellebuck is the best goaltender in the world right now, nobody's going to care about what I believe if he doesn't step up and deliver those results and be that advantage that Winnipeg is supposed to have over the Colorado Avalanche.
I'm curious too, where, staying on goalies, there's been the jokes about the goalie union and their constant handing the jackets back and forth to each other. With Hellebuck this year, he seems so much more just like loose and ready to roll. How incredible is it for, this team to have these two, the best goalie tandem in the league, but also to have them just like continuously pushing each other and being so close, and and just being good too. Like, it's not even like they're, one guy's clearly, the number one in terms of, stats, and then the other one's just there to help sort of pressure. They're both incredible. Like, they, in terms of their goals saved above average and everything, they're obviously, Hellebuck is leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. But Brossoit's in the top 10 there too. So like, how big is it to just have these guys that are both good and just so close with each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the answer is it's real key. Brossoit has talked, and he was the Winnipeg Jets nomination for the Masterton Trophy just for perseverance, knowing that he'd gone down to the AHL and back. He battled through a couple surgeries and come back and established his game at this level. And we were talking to him about, well, the sort of bet he made on himself to come to Winnipeg for this particular year, right? Like, this was his chance to prove to the world he can play well enough to be an NHL starter. And one of the reasons that Winnipeg was such a good fit was that his relationship with Connor Hellebuck is so strong. And Wade Flaherty, that relationship is strong. Disposition-wise, these guys complement each other. They really do. They're very, I want to say, chill, obviously hyper-focused at being the best that they can be. But disposition-wise, I mean, I think that they've been a good fit. And I think that their support for each other is renowned. And I think that you have to be able to tell yourself that story if you believe in the other guy's success. Think about LB. Sorry, I was going to end right there, but like, think about Laurent Brossoit in net fighting his ass off to protect a Jennings trophy that his name isn't necessarily going to be on unless the Jets can pull off some kind of bureaucratic win, getting because he didn't play enough games to meet the 25-game threshold. And then he goes and he's speaking to Sarah Orlesky in an interview afterwards. And the topic kind of comes up, and he is putting the team first and in front of himself, and he's willing to celebrate Connor Hellebuck's accomplishments in that moment. And I think that, even if he does want his name on that trophy, which I'm sure that he does, being able to respond the right way for your team, another reason why that partnership works.
Yeah, that has been a huge reason why the Jets finished as the fourth best team in the NHL this year. You brought up the second line earlier on. Some people were bringing it up in chat that Casey Middlestat, acquired at the deadline by the Avalanche, has been a Buffalo Sabre his whole career, so he doesn't have the playoff experience. And you brought up the second line of Ehlers, Monahan, and Toffoli. With Toffoli having won a Stanley Cup, with Sean Monahan being a veteran in the league, Do you think experience on that line, especially from those two that the Jets acquired at the deadline, could play a massive role in that over a Casey Middlestat who's playing in his first ever playoff game tonight?
Yeah, I understand the angle. I really do. For me, I look at when a guy enters the playoffs inexperienced and really young, and that's not the case for him, right? Like, you wouldn't have said, actually, people did say this, but I argued, like last year with Jack Eichel, that was his first real playoffs run, right? And he and Mark Stone had one bad game. Game one, Winnipeg took over, and then from that moment on, I mean, what did you get, right? And so Middlestat's not a 19, 20, 21-year-old player. He's mid-20s. He's in his prime. He's done some really special things over the last two seasons, and this season in particular, mostly in Buffalo. I think that there's a quality player there. And in the like I've even said this in this recording, right? Like in this live LFP show that, okay, well, Winnipeg's depth should take over. I do think that that's a bit of a discredit to the quality that Casey Middlestat has. And I don't think Winnipeg's seen it yet, because the one game after the trade deadline that these two teams played was that 7-0 shenanigans. And I don't think anybody in Winnipeg is looking at that game and picking out which Avalanche are the ones to be worried about, even though on the whole, there is more quality than just Nathan MacKinnon. So I do like that Winnipeg acquired Sean Monahan and the fit that he's had, especially on the power play. I do like Tyler Toffoli's acquisition. That trio, the moment these trades were made, actually 2 days before the trades were made, I put ideal Winnipeg Jets lines in Rick Bonus's eyes, and I put Tyler Toffoli on Sean Monahan's right wing beside Nikolai Ehlers. Like, this is how I imagine that the Jets would want to run things. So if Winnipeg has success, it's because these guys did well in that matchup. I just don't think it's as easy to go against Casey Middlestat as maybe his complete lack of playoff experience would indicate.
And, to kind of, put a bow on things here, maybe it's putting you on the spot, but I want to know your series prediction. Like, what are we looking at, games and sort of how things are going? And then even just starting with game one tonight.
Game one, let me think about. I don't know. I don't know how to anticipate the start. There are some Jets that haven't played in front of a whiteout before. Nikolai Ehlers, we were just talking to him. He hasn't played in front of one since 2019 because of the right combination of injuries and obviously the 2021 season where there weren't fans properly in this building. So there's a little bit of that. I don't think Winnipeg's, somebody pointed out to me, I haven't looked it up, but maybe you guys know that Winnipeg's home record in the playoffs isn't as good as its road record. Is that true? Is it not? I don't know. Don't run with it. So tonight, I am not sure. I think you'll see a lot of energy. I'd like to think that Winnipeg's momentum heading into the playoffs, the quality of play that they've reached should serve them well and give them a good chance to win. On the series, though, I'm on record, I guess, I don't know if my name's attached to it, but at The Athletic and in my playoff bracket in the Winnipeg Sports Talk pool, where I've got the Winnipeg Jets winning this series because I believe in their team 5-on-5 defense. I absolutely think MacKinnon and Rantanen will have their days and their nights, and they will produce. I have no qualms about that whatsoever, but on the whole of it, I've decided that Winnipeg's depth and overall quality and 5-on-5 defense and Connor Hellebuck is going to carry the day.
Yes, people in chat approve of that prediction for sure. Thank you so much, Murat, for joining us on the 10th edition of LFP Live. We really appreciate it. On the way out, I know you've wrote a ton of stuff at The Athletic the last couple of days, most notably the one I read the other day, the keys to stopping Nathan MacKinnon. In a sense, plug what you've written at The Athletic, what's coming up for this playoff series, and where people can expect to see for your work.
That Nathan MacKinnon story is just based in this idea that MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar, their numbers don't go down in the playoffs like so many players do. They don't. Like I mentioned that MacKinnon stat of having the third best points per game in the playoffs earlier. That's incredible stuff. It's actually more than he scored in the regular season, and he's just come off of 140 points. So there's a little element of, okay, like, watch out for this guy. Playoffs are a different animal, but so is he, right? And so then that piece gets into a little bit of video, just a little bit, that talks about the importance of defending those second and third waves of Colorado offense. And it gives an example of the Adam Lowry line with Morrissey and DeMello doing a pretty good job of that. And also something goes wrong, and now they've got to commit to that 5-on-5 defense, protecting the middle of the ice. So we talk about that. We talk about Winnipeg's weakness, admittedly a pretty big weakness on the penalty kill, which has been a shooting gallery and just the bevy of options Colorado has. Obviously, Jonathan Drouin's injury will play into that, but they're good even without him. Don't you worry about that. But we go sort of step by step in all the different facets of the game, and I think that's a worthy read. This morning as well, I dropped a piece essentially just about who has the most to prove, because you remember a year ago, pushback. Nobody showed up. Their top players were better than ours. And there's a lot of little interesting storylines about Winnipeg Jets that, whether they'll say it out loud or not, there is a lot at stake for these guys. And then I was surprised to hear that both Mason Appleton and Nikolai Ehlers and the coach today, I mean, mostly the players, were willing to say, like, hey, we've got an awful lot to prove here too. So there's some pretty high stakes. We got the full series preview at the Athletic up as well. My player poll series was way too much fun. If for some reason you haven't read it, read it. And then we got feature stories about some of the biggest players coming up too that I'm excited for.
Well, yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. And just quickly on that player poll and the deep dive you did there, Nikolai Ehlers, knowing about the Nikolaj thing on Brooklyn Nine-Nine and then saying his favorite scene was when Jake gets them all to sing I Want It That Way. Great. He went up my power rankings and favorite Jets for sure.
Yeah, apparently Connor Hellebuck likes to point it out too. So it's a joke they make amongst themselves.
Totally. Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. That's why people should subscribe to The Athletic right there.
Right there.
Great journalism. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us live.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a great day. I'm sure you'll be very busy. I'll see you down at the rink later today. And let's enjoy game one.
Right on. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Murat.
There's Marat Atesh from The Athletic. Super excited that he was able to join us live from the rink. I loved the kind of hockey ASMR there. You heard the post skin hit in the background. It's great.
The ping.
Yeah, exactly. The loud pings as the Avs are currently on the ice for their morning skate ahead of game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just one last thing, Brian, before we wrap up here, because we've gone so long. This has been so much fun. We have so many people here in chat. Playoff game day edition. We're here every Sunday, so join us next Sunday as well. And we really appreciate everyone being here. Who do you think is a player? I haven't read Murat's article yet. A player that has a lot to prove for the Winnipeg Jets. If you had to just single one out, I know a lot of the team does because they've had some shortcomings over the past couple years. But if there's one player that you're eyeing, like that player's a lot to prove here in the first round, who would it be?
I think it's Mark Scheifele. I really do, because I feel like he's had a hard time living up to the incredible 2018 postseason that he had. And, as we've talked about, whether it was injury or suspension, he hasn't been able to finish his own playoff runs under his own accord recently. And I truly think that for him to come out and I'm not expecting him to have the goal production that he did in that 2018 postseason, but seeing him come out and be the dominant top center that we've seen of him, I think that's huge. I think for him, and then obviously for the team.
Yeah, I agree. I think him and I think Nikolai Ehlers is one that I'm going to throw out there, because there was this notion for a long time that he wasn't a playoff performer. And then he had that 2-goal 1-assist game against the Oilers where he scored the OT winner. That was his first game back from an injury. Last year, he was injured, only played one game, played limited minutes because he was clearly hurt. I think he has this kind of stereotype around him. I don't even know if that's the right word. He has this I don't know the word I'm looking for. You know what I'm talking about. He's known as a player who apparently doesn't perform in the playoffs. So I think he has a lot to prove here. And as Murat said, that second line could feast on the Avalanche depth. Is there anything else before we head out on the 10th edition of LFP Live that you want to bring up?
I mean, as always, we always do this, and it's incredible that we can keep doing this every single week. We every single week address the fact that with each passing episode, it's a bigger LFP Live. Right now on YouTube alone, we have 160-ish viewers across all platforms. So our Twitters, Facebook, YouTube, we're over 650 right now, which shatters our records. People like Murat, people like the playoffs.
People like the playoffs for sure.
But no, I mean, as always, just thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in on your Sunday. And man, we cannot wait to have another pregame LFP next week.
Next Sunday. That one's even going to be closer because that is.
So there's probably not going to be a morning skate because it's what, a
1:30 p.m. Central start. Yeah. So yeah.
Which, before we move on here, I have to just check here with Rat Rover Rebel. this a Cody Rhodes reference? You can bring in the wrestling references into chat.
It has to be. It has to be.
Has to be.
Has
But
to
no,
be.
how about you? How do you want to end off our biggest LFP ever?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that this is where we're at. We wanted to make it the biggest one ever with Murat coming on for game 1 of the playoffs. And it's you guys count like Rennie. It's StreamYard, I swear. But no, I really appreciate everyone showing up. Thank you so much for Murat for making it work around the morning skate. He's a very busy guy. And yeah, everyone's here on a Sunday, and everyone is so excited. And I am so excited for this game tonight, for the start of the playoffs. The Winnipeg Whiteout is back. Enjoy the game, everyone. It's going to be an absolute blast. If you're going to the street party, enjoy it. It's going to be beautiful outside. And yeah, let's have some fun. This is just going to be fun.
Absolutely.
This is going to be so much fun, as was this show.
Yes.
Everyone's dropping a Go Jets Go in the chat. The chat is fired up. Enjoy the game tonight, everyone. We will see you next Sunday at 9 p.m. again for the 11th edition of LFP Live. Maybe we'll get another guest for that, help preview game 4 of the series. But until then, we'll be
our weekly episodes. So we've got we'll have something dropping Tuesday morning. We'll be able to talk about, game 1, previewing game 2 that will be obviously happening that night. So no, it's it'll be a great week.
Yeah, great call. And on the way out, do what Paul just did. Thank you very much, Paul. And subscribe, hit the like button so you don't miss videos like this in the future. We will see you all next Sunday. Enjoy the game tonight, everyone. And yeah, we'll see you next Sunday. We'll see you Tuesday for our weekly episodes. Thanks for joining us today. Go Jets. Yeah, let's do it. See ya.